I wanted to bring two of my mentors in. So Dr. Julie Von Frank and Dr. Anne-Marie Woolsey here. I wanted to bring a guy that has been my number one, a guy that should go off and fly his own starship, but he won't leave his captain, Dr. Zach Mikovic. Then I want to bring a woman that every time I get to work with her, I just fall deeper in admiration for her, Iman. And then finally, my trooper worked with me for 3 reviews last year. And I think it was with you, Julie, or Cindy Chance. She was working a review in Korea in the morning and then turning around and working a review with me in the afternoon. And so, Huda, I thank you for being here as well. We all represent different ranges of professional experience and education. And what we want to do today, we want to focus on the fact that leadership matters, and we want to circle and revolve all of our conversation around one problem that I'm seeing all over the world. I began seeing it about 5 or 6 years ago, and that is staff attrition. I really thought when I was in China that this was a China thing, that people would just leave schools. But it's not. It's everywhere. It's in Egypt. It's in the GCC. It's in Pakistan. It's in South America. And then I come to find out it's in the United States as well. I was told by one of my mentors that teachers these days, they won't quit at the end of the year. They won't quit at the end of the semester. They don't quit at the end of the month. They quit in the middle of the week and walk away because it is a seller's market right now. And we want to give you some qualities of effective leaders that make it so that people are loyal to them, some attitudes, practices that leaders can have that build loyalty. And I'm going to admit to you up front, and I think all of us would in this room, you're going to lose teachers every year. What we want to do is share with you from our collective wisdom ways that you can stem some of that bleeding and retain people for the longer term and hopefully the long term. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to let my number one, Zach Mikovic, kick it off. And so Zach, the video is yours.
I'd like to start with something that we discussed before, and you mentioned Peter Drucker, who is very famous in the world of organizational leadership, sort of a godfather, a lot of literature of his out there. And it's a quote that talks about what he believes is what his research has found as the task of leadership. And the quote says that the task of leadership is to bring about an alignment of strengths so as to render organizational weaknesses irrelevant. So one of the organizational strengths that we all want to tap into, and it's related to today's topic, is definitely knowing your people. However, in order to know who you're working with, not for, with, we have to devote the time to get to know them. The second part of that is really related to another conversation that we had in a different setting, which was related to different generational bands being in the workplace all over the world. So we have 4 different generational bands. We have the Generation X and obviously the baby boomer generation that are in the positions of leadership. And there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between the understandings between the Gen Zers and the millennials and the ones who are leading organizations, in this case, our case, schools. So this is something that is fundamental to making things better and staff retention. And the fundamental beginning of all of this really is taking the time to understand the people that you work with, but doing it in a very authentic way. Because authenticity is something that people respond to. And we often hear the word fake this, fake that. There's a lot of application of the word fake these days. We use it even for news now. Well, if we can detect fake news, we can certainly detect fake behavior and people who are fake towards us. It doesn't take a highly experienced person to know when someone that is approaching you, especially someone like a department head or a vice principal or a principal, is being inauthentic in their approach in wanting to know who we are as a person. In order to get to know us better, to make things better for us in the way we work and what we do after work as well, all for the goal of retaining us for the longer term and helping our schools improve.
Uh, a lot of what you said goes to a guy you may have heard of him, may have not. Parker Palmer. Have you all heard of Parker Palmer? And he really talks about that. He talks about you need to have the integrity to be your authentic self. That when you engage people, that they need to figure out very quickly that the person that they're seeing doesn't have any agenda other than their success, school success. And so yeah, that goes along with what Parker Palmer talked about. And you're right. You know when somebody is inauthentic. And you end up putting a 10-foot pole between you and them, which means that the leader cannot get to know that person in a relationship. And I'm big into relationships with not only my staff, my students, my parents. Julie, last week you had shared some things, or this week when we talked, and it kind of dovetailed off of that, if I remember correctly.
Right, because we were talking about the authenticity, and one of the things you actually mentioned when we had talked before was about being honest, which relates to what Zach was saying. They know, even your students, when you're a teacher, they know if you're being honest with them. But as a leader, and I was a turnaround principal or a change agent hired to go into underperforming schools, my honesty mattered so much with the teachers. And there are four things that, regardless of where you are and where you're leading, that you really need to remember. And the first one is communicate relentlessly and honestly. Sometimes you may feel like you're giving them an overload, but if they don't understand the parameters within which you're working, they cannot understand why you're doing things. So if you do that, then you're working to cultivate their commitment to what your charge is and what you need to do. And you've got to instill urgency. You know, if it doesn't matter to you, it's not going to matter to them. Before I went to one school, the teachers would sign up for conferences and go. And then when they got there, they'd go off shopping or play golf.
Whoa.
So I learned quickly that if it wasn't important enough for me to go with them, it wasn't important enough for them to stay there. So even if I had professional development at school, I was right there with them. That urgency, they've got to see that it's within you so they can keep that commitment. And then as the leader, you've got to manage that project.
Yes.
You've got to have your own checklist to make sure that things are going off as you intended. If you don't, it's going to go off the rails and not going to matter. So leaders have, we talk about teachers thinking their job's a 8 to 3 or job or whatever, but yours is 24/7 because you've got so much work to do. You either take it home or you stay late. But the biggest things that I can encourage you, the being honest, communicating, instilling urgency, and cultivating commitment along with managing the project. Those things will take you a long way. And remember that your teachers can be leaders too, and they can help you immensely.
They can be. There's a great book that I introduced to Anne-Marie and Zach 4 or 5 months ago. I love the book, and it's by a former submarine captain in the U.S., and it's the name of the book is Turn the Ship Around. And it talks about the fact that as leaders, you should be building leaders at every single level. Where somebody, say, in that department, they make decisions because they're there. And so you build it up, you entrust them, you back them up, and then, by the way, you get good information coming up to you that allows you to make good decisions. And then it becomes very collaborative. So
one thing I do want to add, Greg, is that I did add a bibliography to our Google Drive about different articles and very great information on how to lead for positive change. So if anybody's interested, you're welcome to have whatever's there if any of it might fit your needs.
Okay, thank you. So Iman, you're there in Qatar. You've been a leader for a long time. So talk to
Yeah.
us. Talk to us about the qualities of a leader and the things that leaders can do to help retain staff.
Okay. First, I want to emphasize about the vital role that the leadership play in shaping the school and the culture, and how that reflects on the student achievement. And that's the most important. If we don't have the right culture and the right environment, okay, the school will collapse.
Mm.
So the culture of the school is the shared values, belief, and everything that nourish this culture. So leaders are like an instrument that they need to cultivate positive school culture. They need to establish norms, promote respect, inclusivity, and collaboration among all the whole staff. For example, a principal who participate or encouraging an open communication, okay, and celebrate different occasions with the staff, that's reflect a good environment at the school. That's make them happy, makes them feel valued. And that's turn on the student achievement inside the class because teachers are happy. So you have a good culture, which is reflect to the key qualities of the leadership, which is have a visionary leadership, a strong leader that can communicate, has clear vision and the clear goals that he needs to or she needs to deliver to the staff and the whole stakeholders. It's like the roadmap that guides decision and inspire everyone to work towards common goals. And the instructional part, like some leaders think that they are sitting on the chair up. They don't need to be involved on the educational part, which is actually, I think that's not correct or it's not right path. A leader should focus on what is matters most, teaching and learning. And to do that, they need to support teacher by providing resources, professional development, and create culture of collaboration between them. And from here, that would support the student academic level. So, and that will help the school, okay, to be heading to a whole one union. They are all sharing the same values, belief, and goal, which is the student achievement. Another quality is the decision making, okay, and solving problem, okay.
Yeah.
Like the leader should have like more than one plan, okay, an alternative plan. We are facing all in Gulf or in the Middle East or the Western, okay, changes, okay. It can be a COVID, it can be anything. So they need to have the right people involved in taking decisions that benefit the entire school community, not only small group that they only care about their own interest. And one more thing that Zach highlighted last time, which is the emotional intelligence, which is how to be compassionate, how to sympathize, how to understand and have an open communication that we can be like passionate, understandable to the people or to the employees around us, and that's create a trust and positive school. And that's it for the leadership, I guess.